today's Facebook Live lesson. I'm your host, Brittany Bird, and today I am here with Jason, who is going to be talking to us about the importance of buying back your time. Now, before we get started, just say hi in the comments below and let us know where you're joining from. Also, we're going to be giving away some free books today at the end of the video. And all you have to do to win a free book is let us know in the comments your number one takeaway from today's video. So let's get started. Jason, we want to thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Amazing. So do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. This might give a kind of a good foundation for where the conversation is going to go. So, my name is Jason Leonards. I own Revolution Fitness and Therapy in Stowe, Ohio, and also have a little podcast called Revolutionary You, and that's kind of where the basis, the foundation for business was at. So I have a brick and mortar business that's been thriving. We're about to celebrate 10 years in business on May 1st, which is fantastic. And at the time that I came into Online Trainer Academy, I had a small roster of online clients and not a lot of consistency to the service that was being delivered. And I thought, okay, I need to just go ahead and jump off the fence and dive into the certification to see what problems it can help me solve in terms of streamlining that experience for the people that I was working with virtually, as well as face to face, and hoping there was some carryover.
Amazing. So I want to just to stop you there. So for those of you that are watching, Jason already had a brick and mortar business, and obviously it's super successful because, like you said, in May you're about to celebrate your 10th year anniversary, which is incredible because we know the stats that I think by like the 10th year in business, there's really only 3% of businesses left, right? So that's an incredible accomplishment. So you already had a brick and mortar business, and obviously it was doing really well. So what made you want to start coaching clients online?
Yeah, the way it started, it was sort of twofold. So I had people who had previously trained with me face to face and had since moved away. So that was one little portion of my online training business. And I'd been a guest on a couple of other podcasts, and as a result, that kind of brought some attention to what I did. And so I started to get correspondence from people that heard me on those podcasts to say, "Hey, can you tell me more about this online service that you have?" And so as I started to really start to stack up those numbers, I thought, okay, I'm trying to keep all these plates spinning face to face and online, and I've got this thing called a family, and I got to figure out how they fit into it, plus my entire schedule. So I know we're going to dive into part of that in our conversation today, is how to keep all the plates spinning while you break as few of them as humanly possible.
Absolutely. So uh what was your number one takeaway, your number one lesson that you shared with me before we went live here?
Yeah, so initially, as I mentioned, the one thing that I was like, okay, I really need better systems, and so that's really what I was looking for when I made the transition into the certification. And as I started to get into the text, what I realized was there was something else that was kind of part of this that I didn't realize was as much of a opportunity as what I had expected, which is really taking ownership over time. And for a lot of people that may be in a similar position, maybe they are working out of a gym, or like me, they own a business of their own, they've got that face-to-face clientele. They believe that by making the transition to online training or having the hybrid approach, that they automatically are just bestowed all of this freedom, and you really have to build that freedom into the conversation. I'm kind of one of those people that I don't mind working from bell to bell, so my work day it's so long. But what I realized that, um, for me initially, I wanted as few white spaces as possible in my planner, and I realized that I had that all wrong. If I don't give myself some white space and some time to really sort of develop all the things that it takes to keep these things running successfully, I needed a little bit more free time to myself. So that's probably the first thing to say is, you as the trainer, and you as hopefully the online trainers, you have to set that foundation of freedom right from the get-go.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to dig a little bit deeper here. So you are somebody that doesn't like to have any white space. So you had told me that you're a recovering hustler. Is that right?
So yeah, so here I am. I'm 10 years into business, and I mean I think I still have to hustle. I can't really afford to be complacent. Otherwise, competition's not going to go away, and that's regardless
Mhm.
of whether you do it face to face or you're in the online training realm or whatever. There's always going to be somebody who wants a piece of your pie. So I do think there's still that hustle mentality, but I did have to break that thought process of maybe the wrong philosophy is to make sure that there's no white space. I actually needed to take back some of that white space so that everything could still, function with some degree of harmony.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of that busy equals important. And I think a lot of our clients, we could say that they have that same mindset, right? That we have clients that give us those excuses like, oh, I'm too busy to work out, I'm too busy to do these things. But in reality, you as a business owner, you need to take that time and really use it wisely and ask yourself, am I using the time that I have right now to the best that I possibly can? And that's something that I personally ask myself daily, because it's very easy to get into that busy mode and feel like you're making a difference or you're being productive. And it's not necessarily busy equals productive. You're not always coming out with content and stuff like that. So, do you want to explain to us kind of how, like, step by step, going from a really busy schedule, what did you do to actually get more of your time back?
Yeah, so and you kind of touched on it. It's the same thing that we talk to our clients about. It's about making certain things priorities. If you realize, hey, I need more time for exercise, you need to schedule that time. Treat it like a doctor's appointment, or some of the things that we start to say is make sure that that's an important part of your day. If meal prep is something that you need because that's what's going to get you closer to your goal, it's the same conversation, just looking at it through a slightly different lens. So for me, I had to look at that pocket of time, and I realized, okay, for my AM shift with my face-to-face clients, we're typically busy from this time to this time. There's this sort of gray area in the middle of the day, say from about 11 to 2, where if I did decide to open it up to clients, I had clients that would take that time. And what I realized was, but that doesn't leave me any time for me. Like, it doesn't leave me any time for a consultation or to do the podcast or to write content or my own training, eating lunch, doing continuing ed, all these things that are part of what we need to be the best that we can for our clients. So I really had to learn how to walk the talk. And so for me, I really had to start, officially and unofficially bookending my day. So I have this gap of time, this is when I train clients, and this gap of time, this is when I train, and nothing interferes unless it's, of course, it's a conversation with Brittany Bird for PTDC and OTA, for a live thing like this that is kind of in that middle of the day. That's still important because not only do I want to try to bring value to my clients, but I hopefully am kind of talking to the next wave of online trainers who really want to do the best they can for themselves and their clients.
Absolutely. Now, you brought up a really interesting point, and I think a lot of trainers say yes to everyone, but they don't realize that. And it's the same thing with our clients. It's funny, right? Because we tell our clients certain things, but then we don't always listen to ourselves. But when we say yes to someone else, we're saying no to something for ourselves.
Right.
So when we're saying yes to one more hour, and I know when I first started my gym 10 years ago, it was the same thing. I would say yes to every single client, right? Because I had that same hustle mentality. But then you realize that when you say yes to them, you're missing your own workout. You're missing time to do your meal prep. You're doing all these other things for other people, but you're not doing them for yourself. So, what systems, when you moved online, did you find initially it was overwhelming because you just had so many people, and you said that everybody was kind of at a different spot, right? So, what how did you set that up to alleviate some stress and still serve your clients at the highest level?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I sort of saw and understood the approach of a couple different people who I want to say each of them were actually referenced in the textbook. So Jordan Lark was one person who, I have a huge amount of respect and love for Jordan and the type of business that he runs. He's completely online. And in speaking with him, he is somebody who is busy from bell to bell. So again, that concept of no or little white spaces and just being, I don't for lack of a better term, almost hyper available to his clients. Um, Mike Dola, somebody from Stronger You, that's another person very, very involved in the online realm, and always again having that staff of people that's always available. And for me, it was like, well, I've got to find a way to make this work because I have this face to face business that I'm not going to let go of. That is the bread and butter, but I have to service this other clientele. So I almost had to lean more towards like the Andy Morgan approach of doing things where you had specific times, specific days where you dealt with these things unless there was, say, like an emergency. But again, kind of coming back to the foundation that you build for your online clients, you have to let this stuff be known right from the get-go. This is when I'm available. This is when I can handle these things. Andy has a very specific way of doing it that I know has been extremely successful for him. And so it's just trying to take in those points of influence and going, okay, I'm going to be available, but I'm not going to feel like I'm at the beck and call of every single notification that I get. Sometimes I just need to step away, take a little note, and go, okay, I'm going to get back to that person during this time. Otherwise, I'm just going to be chained to the computer, to the phone, and all those things. And again, I'll get right back in that mindset of I'm not doing the things that I tell a client to do. And so it's just being able to step back from it and go, I need to take my own medicine because this is what I would tell somebody else. One thing that you and I were talking about offline just a moment ago was I recently was having something of a coaching call with a fellow trainer who was looking to transition from face to face to online. And the word she used was, I want more freedom. I want more freedom at this time of the day. And I said, okay, you got to realize that you have to set the pace for how that freedom is going to look. You have to do it right from the get go. Otherwise, you're just going to be a slave to that itinerary all over again.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point because a lot of I find a lot of coaches when they move online, right? And they want to price it at $200 or whatever the price is, they say unlimited contact, 24/7 contacts,
Right.
right? And we think that that's what people want, so we add it in, but then what ends up happening is that because you don't set those expectations, it's it's near impossible to service your client like that because your phone is literally going off all the time. And I remember I had a client, it would have been probably 6, 7 years ago at least, and they were training for a fitness competition. And I got a text at like 10:30 at night asking if they could have peanut butter. And and I didn't answer because I was in bed. And I remember the next morning they were so upset at me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, first off, I asked myself, well, I need to be able to educate my clients to make those choices on their own. And then secondly, I need to be able to set expectations. And that was something that as soon as that happened, because I think most trainers, right, we are very compassionate for our clients. So we want to be there for them all the time. But what I have learned is when I'm there for everyone else all the time, I'm not there for myself and I get burnt out. And then I don't do the job that I want to do. So when that happened, I remember just getting like completely burnt out. And moving forward, I was like, I need to set expectations because I don't want to disappoint anyone. I want people to feel like they really love working with me because I love working with them. It's an honor. But if we don't set those expectations for our clients, we're literally doing a disservice to ourselves by not setting them.
It's true, and it's one thing that too that it kind of going back to the text. I think that this is one thing that I already kind of had this in place, which was having an online community. So you have a base and a community online where your clients can interact with each other because at those times when you may not be available, you still have a built-in support system. So if you have somebody struggling because they're like, "Hey, I really want the peanut butter," and everybody knows what peanut butter withdrawal is actually like. I mean, it's harrowing, it's scary. So that this client, if they would have had that access, they would have been able to ask the rest of that support group, hey, listen, peanut butter, yay, nay, are we going to make it through this? And the things like that.
Absolutely. So what expectations have you set up for your clients?
um I still have it set up to like to let them know, hey, listen, I am available for you, and if there's something really pressing, please let me know. If I don't respond to everything, just at the drop of a hat, please realize that I've got these other things happening with the business. So if you don't hear from me within X amount of time, this is when I want you to kind of follow up and just circle back and make sure that number one, I got the message, because a lot of what I do through Facebook, and you hope that Facebook gives you all the notifications, but they don't. So you've got those different touch points of, hey, if you've tried to reach me through Facebook, try email, because I want to make sure that your concerns are taken care of in as close to real time as possible, and just trying to keep that dialogue open as much as you can.
Hey, real quick, I know you're into this episode, but I wanted to let you know that if you want to get started with online coaching, then I have a free gift for you. It's a free 3-day course, and in it you'll learn the core truths guaranteed to get you online fitness clients. You can register with your email at onlinetrainer.com/intro, or if you're in the United States, simply text PTDC to 444999. Thanks, now back to the show.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that coaches realize that communication is super, super important with clients. And I am a woman of many words. So when it comes to communicating with my clients, I feel that it is, you're almost better to say too much than not enough, because even checking in on clients, I know there was somebody, I can't remember who it was, or it might be an interview that I haven't even done yet, but they had said that they use Saturdays to check in with their clients, and just scheduling those things, making a list of everything that is important for you to, either stay at the same level you're at or move to the next level, or to even alleviate some of that stress, right? Because like what we were talking about beforehand, that if you have to write an email twice, or you have to write anything twice, create a system for it, so that if you are talking about protein, because we were talking about that a little bit before as well, if you have to teach someone a lesson about protein, take time to write that out, so that next time you can literally just copy and paste that. And I know that that is one of John's strategies. Like, if I don't know if you guys have noticed that literally John is in all of the Facebook groups at what seems to be all of the time, all day, every day. And I'm like, how is this guy doing this? This is crazy. But a system that I've learned from him and from the OTA is, if you have to say something twice, literally have a note for it, have it in your phone. So if you have to send something twice, you can just put it out there, you can copy and paste it, and your client is getting the best version of you, not the version of you because you have 2 minutes in between your clients and you're just giving them a quick answer to get back to them right away.
I think it's that. And I think the other thing too, and this was something that was really almost a little bit of culture shock initially for me, was because I had become so accustomed to what those touch points were like when I have a face-to-face client. When you see somebody 2, 3 times a week, hey, listen, if I didn't address this problem for Susie on Monday, I'm going to see her again on Wednesday. We're going to get it handled. With an online client, again, you have to set those expectations up of, hey, listen, if you're struggling, we need to know, how to communicate with one another. Otherwise, you're just leaving somebody out there just sort of stranded to deal with life as it's coming to them. So realizing that there's a lot of shift in dynamics between those two different training relationships.
Absolutely. And I find it's very interesting because I find too, and I'm not sure if you've had this issue with clients online, but if you almost go too long with communicating with them, they think that something's up, right? And they're just like, you must be disappointed or whatever. And then it makes it really uncomfortable when you try to communicate with them, because, you haven't really communicated with them. So what do you find works with you? How often do you communicate with your clients that are online?
So it depends on the client. And again, that was another thing that was kind of odd for me to get used to, is some people, I'd say right now with my current roster of online clients, I don't have anybody that I feel needs a daily touch point. That may change, but what I do have is I do have a few clients that like to give me feedback daily. So they want to copy their exercise log, they want to show me their food log, they want to give me their weigh in. And I think that those clients tend to thrive because they have that daily point of accountability. And then I have others who kind of calling it what it is. I've got a couple of clients who used to work with me face to face. They're now in another state, or in one case, I have a person in another country, and she knows kind of how things work when she's here, and she's in Israel. Shout out to Leah. And so
Uh-huh.
she doesn't have quite as many touch points because she's like, I just need a system to follow. I need you to look back at my training log. I need you to tell me that I'm hitting the right PRs, that I'm, if I have a bad day, it's okay. And, just kind of talking through those types of things.
That's great. So now when you onboard clients, what type of systems do you have set up? So walk me through when someone first contacts you, say on Facebook Messenger or wherever they do, what kind of system have you set up to make that process go as smoothly as possible?
Sure. So I normally, depending on the person and their own, degree of comfort with technology being what it is, some people prefer a phone call, some don't mind Skype, Facebook Messenger, whatever the case is. And I literally will print out the same questionnaire that I use for a face-to-face client, and then I'll kind of add a few things into it. So it's everything from previous history with personal trainers. It's their medical history, injuries, medications, that kind of stuff. The same stuff that I want to know face-to-face, and then kind of diving in a little bit more to understand what do they have available to them. Some people want to be able to work out at home. Some people have a gym membership and they just need a plan to follow. The fact of the matter is, for some of the people I've worked with, as odd as it sounds, some people don't need to be in the gym. They need to really get their mind right and focus on food, because that's going to be the game changer for them. And so it's kind of getting that conversation started. And this was another thing that was really eye-opening for me, was how much work is required initially to get a client onboarded. So, it's the consultation time, and then assuming that the client is ready to go and give you the green light to move forward with the working relationship. It is trying to set up what they need. Let's assume they do need a workout. So if I give them 2 workouts that they're going to do per week, do they know what all those exercises are? I need to have a video library available to get that stuff to them. So, it could take, say, 2.5 hours just to get somebody ready to go from the moment they say, let's proceed. And then hopefully it's slightly less time as you go through, because they've got a clear head about what's happening. And then you spend a little bit more time as you go, say, from cycle to cycle.
And we were actually talking about this before we came on live here, that I find that when sometimes people make the transition to online, they just feel like, oh, like, give me money. I'm just going to be like swimming in money, floating on my yacht, whatever. And that's really not the case, right? Because at the end of the day, we all care for our clients, and we want to service them at the highest level. So we need to create those systems that are going to allow us to still have, whatever freedom means to us. And that's kind of what we touched on in James's interview, which was on Monday. If you guys haven't tuned into that yet, you can find it on any of the pages that you're watching this on. You'll be able to find it in the videos. But what freedom means to you and what freedom means to me is totally different, right? So, but we need to still be able to service our clients at the highest level. So setting up those systems and realizing that, think the way that I onboard a client is, I think of them as I would, my aunt, or because I deal with only women, but I would think of like my aunt or my mom or my grandmother, right? Like, I want to be able to service them in the way that somebody would be treating, my aunt, my grandmother, or my mom when they come into a program. So you do want to take that time with them to really show them that you care. And at the end of the day, to me, it's not about the money. It's about the impact that I'm making with my clients. So if you're always working at serving them from the highest level and taking the time that they need, but also systemizing it, because if you're just whipping through stuff quickly and not being able to provide them at that highest service, the likeliness that they're going to renew is not very likely.
Right. And I do think that that's another, challenge that a lot of people may not be prepared for. Is I do think the retention is a slightly different, conversation to have between, say, face to face and online. Is, you do have to find ways to make sure that you're still providing value when you don't have all of those touch points. So just because somebody signs up and just because they may be seeing good results does not guarantee that they're going to stick around, because it's a very different working relationship.
So now, do you use an app or anything for your workouts for your clients, or how do you provide them their workouts?
Yeah, so I'm pretty pretty base level. I mean, I use just a Word document and then
Yeah.
set everything up landscape, and I've set up a sheet that they can then print out and take to the gym with them if they like, or if they're doing it from home, they can use it there. But it's very simple. I do have a service that I use where I take all their initial measurements so that I can give them something of a calorie and or macro plan if they need it. So that's been very helpful because that's something where they can see the charts and the graphs as well. I'm not just vomiting a bunch of information on them. So there is
Mhm.
documentation they get to hold on to strictly from that software.
That's handy. And can I ask what software that is?
Yeah, that's a Body Evolver.
Oh, very cool. I've never heard of it, so I'm gonna have to check that out. Now, so someone comes on. How do you find that now that you've gone through the Online Trainer Academy? How much time? And I know that you're somebody that doesn't like to have any white space, regardless. But how do you feel now in comparison to before you started?
I feel great, and like I said, I'm always kind of one of those people that I think sometimes when you go into something with a certain preconceived notion of I'm going to get X, Y, and Z from this product or service or whatever it is, and you have your light bulb moment over something else. I like that. I like those light bulb moments. So. Honestly, being able to look at my schedule now and see more white spaces at the times when I know it's actually possible to have them, it makes me feel very good, and I don't feel as guilty about making sure that the scheduling happens outside of those times, or things like this that are certainly exceptions to the rule, where it's like I know that there's still something where we're serving a greater good by making sure that we put things in the right places. So is it perfectly seamless throughout any given week? No, it's not. But knowing that I don't have to fill up those spaces every single time, that I shouldn't feel bad about myself for that, it has been a huge weight off my shoulders.
Wow, that's an amazing story. Now, do you have any final words or tips that you'd like to give those that are out there watching?
Let's see. Final tips. It's what you make of it. So if you are still willing to work hard, online training, it still takes hard work. You may find that you just naturally gravitate to it, that you have a perfect knack for it. I like online training, but my knack, I'd say what I feel most comfortable with is face to face. And what the text taught me was it taught me new skills to still feel very confident in the online realm, even though, as I mentioned earlier, I knew it wasn't going to replace the brick and mortar business, but I still wanted it to be a very viable, satisfactory substitute for those who can't physically be here.
Okay, I've got a question for you then. So, would you say that the Online Trainer Academy, and I'm pointing that out because leading into my question, would you say that it helped your brick and mortar business at all?
It did, and it comes back to that whole thing with the scheduling too, because once I understood that it was okay to put people in these blocks of the day, it made it kind of goes back to the adage of self-care isn't selfish. And if I take time like this to be self-care, I had lunch before we got on our call today. That's time that I had to give myself because I may not look like it, but I do like food. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I need to regenerate. I need to make sure that come here in about an hour and a half, when the next cycle of clients comes through, that I can be my best self for those people too. And so yeah, it all actually kind of works in harmony. So what I learned from the online training certification actually was hugely beneficial for the brick and mortar.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, on behalf of the Personal Trainer Development Center, Jason, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. I know I found it super useful, and based on the comments that we already have coming in, it sounds like it's also been great info for those that have joined us. Now, for those of you that are watching live at home, don't forget to let us know in the comments your number one takeaway for your chance to win one of John Goodman's books. Okay, so let us know right now in the comments what your number one takeaway was. And then also, if you want to have a similar success as Jason or any of the other interviewees that we've interviewed this week, you're going to want to check out this new mini course from Jonathan Goodman that will give you the blueprint for the next stage in your career. So if you're in the US, simply text PTDC to 444999, Or alternatively, you can join by going to the ptdc.com/intro. And not to worry, that's totally a mouthful, I know, because I just said it, but we're going to put the link in the comments for you guys, okay? So I want to thank you guys again, and we will see you tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, guys.